the differences in various states of India. So, but before that, I want to go a little bit more on the LCS side, and my approach is that you need to understand a bit of LC concept to ask exactly what is the data and what, and so that you can do yourself contract. So to do that, so recording is okay, all good. So let's move on to emissions in thermal power plant. So if you look at that a little bit old data, but generally the studies say 1 car, 1 car, 1 car, but depending on transport, industry and residential. So or by industry sector, you see power. So if you say electricity sector particularly, I think it was like industry, electricity. In Australia, I think that is in 2019. So coal or maybe it's low, I'm not sure. But generally, some countries and global data are very similar. So power emission is 1/3 of the electricity or power, and that's the responsible for emission. And it is actually reducing. In Australia, for example, emissions from electricity is reducing because of the renewable penetration. And many countries, unfortunately, data is not catching up with the speed, particularly in Australia. As I said, our target is 82% by 2030. So our emission will go down. In UK, that meant last coal-fired power plant was shut off in UK maybe last year. So many countries, and they're obviously emission trajectory going down. So it is possible. And countries like US, UK, there must be very bad weather, winter. I've lived in Wales. Horrible weather. It's windy, rainy, and I don't know, most part of the year. So, but it's still there for solar and making, but they've got more wind.
Wind energy is very high.
So, power, gas, power, oil. So these are the kind of electricity sector I would say. And then transport, industry, like you guys, steel is one of the large. Aluminium, if there's an aluminium plant. Is there an aluminium plant in India? No. So that's Vedanta. So Hindustan. Hindustan aluminium something is there?
Vedanta also.
So zinc is there in Rajasthan, Udaipur. So near Udaipur, I don't know exactly the location, but I know that any country has got those sort of plants very strong electricity and high electricity intensive industry, then you can have a lot of emissions. But this is beyond electricity. This is only the thermal heat or reductant. Buildings, that's the residential or commercial buildings and others. So you can see that's a broad. If I update it, you have to change a bit, but broadly that's what it is. Okay. So now CO2 emission of the selected countries. I think I used to monitor until 2007. I think that data. You see, I picked, I don't know, whatever country I picked randomly. So India looks here, 1.6 billion ton, I believe. Yesterday we said that it was like that, so the looks right. So that's India is double, and that one, India here, 2.4, it must be 3 years back. Okay, double years back. So that is 3. Okay, now, you remember Indian stats? Yesterday I showed you 3 billion ton of emission. It looks like it makes sense from this data, right? Contribution. So that's India. If you look at China, so that was like that went, and then I think that one far. US, I think it's US. No, that's US. Yeah, that's US. US kind of, I guess, is static because they have done a lot of. Although US is not, in COP and many things they are not participating, but if you look at a lot of environmental technology, US does a lot. I mean, they have got big labs just focusing on hydrogen. Anything, any work you look at, US is still top, I would say. Technological advancement and investment, even though I think before Trump came, the Biden administration had what is called Inflation Reduction Act. Have you heard of that? IRA. They had more than $1 trillion, and already maybe $700 billion spent before Trump came. And now that is kind of the looking at, but still some money is going on. Promoting batteries, renewable technologies, clean technologies. So that's happening around the world.
However, the political commitment are way away from the energy
previous administration. But on the other hand, yes, it's the president is president. But there are systems, there are organizations, I have got colleagues working in various.
even after the climate change the initiative.
Clean technology. So what is going on? So nothing blue and at the end of the day, what I'm not doing the business. So US is will have always a good role, and technological development and zero emission footprint. If you look at
So why the US's emission is 6.7 million?
6.7,
Yes.
that was particular year because these countries are becoming saturated, not already, whereas India and China is kind of trajectory of the development.
It should
that's
be on the lower side.
The question,
It should be
the
on the lower
question
side.
is why it is in that range? Which industry or which sector is
It's
contributing?
contributing. That's again electricity. Their electricity is fossil based also. They have got lots of. If you go to the US, have you been to? No. Interesting country. Maybe 6 lanes this side, 6 lanes this side. On the plane, any big cities. There are many big cities. Dallas. I was taking airport, I was flying and landing in Dallas city. It always feels like it is on the blue. That so many cars, big cars. So they are huge consumer of petrol.
They don't have public transport like European countries because they are
Yes.
yes.
Very much car dependent.
Because the metro connectivity is very poor. They mostly depend on airplanes to commute from here to there.
And lot of flying also. I think these are the sectors they contribute.
And the mainly saturation point is achieved because they are not producing. They are only importing major products.
Yeah. So manufacturing is shifting from say US to another country. That is the reason. So but 6 became 6.7 few years ago when India was US 6.7. Okay, so not much changes, right? So that is US. Look at then what about Australia? Australia is I think so our Australian one is yesterday I showed you. And again, if we go renewables, 100% renewables nearly, our emission will go down, and we will be happy. I think most of the target Australia made in Kyoto Protocol, Kyoto Protocol one of the mechanism all the countries promise, and in fact Australia is meeting the target before that particular year. And the reason is that because Australia type 1 country, I told you that we can have all our electricity from solar, all our electricity from wind, if we wish to, all our electricity from fossil. So we have that luxury to squeeze and meet. And not only that, we can export. We export maybe globally 10%, 15% of the energy needed. So we run the globe essentially. But if you talk about another thing, it's called responsibility. Say we export a lot of metallurgical coal to India. You know that 60% of our globally 65% market controlled by us. Essentially, we supply so kind of global net coal, and 90% of that comes from India. Or the majority comes from India. Come to India. So that's the coal we send. Okay, you use that one. Emission goes to you because you use that one. So is that we have any responsibility? So that kind of thing. So if you send some stuff to another country, that's we call it scope 3 or outside boundary emission. Yes.
Regarding this scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3, there is a protocol called GHG protocol.
Yes. WRI protocol.
How does that work?
So that's why now people are talking about carbon border adjustment mechanism so that people will be accounted for. And that's why these are becoming tricky area that because if I send some gas, I don't use it, somebody else uses it, who is responsible for that? You know, that you are making good. So we need to have that, that's why carbon, so it's that.
No, I'm asking about this GHG protocol. Who does enforce this protocol? Like there are
So this is the international
third-party verification agencies. Who are there? How
Who are
they
there?
selected?
So there are bodies nowadays being developed. It's international bodies, and like IPCC one of them, and then COP, COP.
IPCC is not a third-party verification agency, right?
So conference of parties, they.
COP is a grouping that meets third-party agency.
So it's an international platform. They are kind of giving this sort of mandate, this sort of target, and etc. And there are private institutions can come, private, they can verify, and LCA is one of them. So these are still not, it's mandatory, it's not legally binding. Most of them are kind of, we promise you will follow, we'll do. So it's, but.
No, actually the standards we follow at say it is according to the GHG standards. GHG protocol is established by WI. WI. GHG protocol that standard we report our emissions.
Yes.
So how do we how does the system work? I wanted to know about that.
That's right. So I can answer you that question probably a little bit and see whether that works. WRI is not a government agency as you know. It's also an NGO, right? now people used to follow WI, right? Because of that scope one. I showed you the diagram, that's WI diagram, right? Now new things coming into what they're called. There are a number of mechanisms, SDG, following sustainable development goals, and then you have to. There are a number of standards like that. But I think somehow WRI got more market share, a lot of people know, and it's very simple relatively. I think that's why it got traction. But there are companies following international standards. Now international standards coming into play. Carbon footprint, there is ISO standards now for both carbon footprint, water footprint, LCA, and it's I cannot exactly give you the number, but also ISO 14001, you know, that which is environmental standard. So if you follow environmental management system, I think better people should move into those sort of standards. And you can have a country-specific standard, but international standard. So country-specific standards developed from international standard. So this is kind of evolving field, to be honest. It's not nailed down yet. So which protocol you should follow? Many countries, many organizations, you look at the sustainability reports. Some are very good, some are not so good. But WRI, if you follow, that's fine too. So
how can we compare the data if it is not authenticated?
So that's why international standard, follow and report and international standard now. But maybe there will be more verification, more. Once this money comes into the play, they will be requiring those kind of verification.
Now, how do we assess third-party rating agencies? Because we don't have a third-party rating agency for sale, and we are in a process to verify that information that we are reporting. One of the loopholes at present in our Indian organizations are that the third-party rating agencies are not not legitimate. So how to identify those organizations and how do they come into picture?
I'll answer that. Like under Article 6.1 of Paris Agreement, there is a mechanism, whole mechanism to introduce obligatory bodies, and they have accredited agencies under them, like the American Registry, Gold Standard. They are the international bodies where you can register your project, and they will your carbon emission and everything, they will quantify them. So they are the international bodies who does this, and they are like authenticated bodies where you can register, and the emissions and everything they will calculate, and they will certify you. They will provide you the certificate where for further review. So under Article 6.1 of Paris Agreement, these things are given under, and the UNFCCC, United Nations, some FCC council body is there who is overlooking
the UNFCCC kind of IPCC.
So and further at a national level, every in India also we are introducing carbon markets. Already under Parliament we have passed our acts and bill and everything. So at national level, the framework will get developed, and which will merge the national things with under obligation. They will merge them with the international ones. So merging is one difficulty, but that will happen. That's happening.
So it's protocol 6.1 के अंदर नहीं आता है, उसी के अंदर भी नहीं है GSD protocol.
It's still evolving kind of scenario. Because in Australia, what happens, we are doing this work for a long time. 2000 we started development, and they have a government department. It's called NGER, National Greenhouse Gas Reporting Scheme. They have a protocol. Exactly, you need to follow. If you are in the steel industry, you follow the protocol. You have to report to the government. There's a verification process. It's a government department does that. Regulatory. India doesn't have that, right? India doesn't
we don't have right now. We don't have. So international bodies are there to quantify that.
But overall, Australian system, we have got mainly IPCC guidelines. So IPCC is the body, ultimate body, IPCC, who dictates these kind of things. So that's our understanding. I'm not too much about the scenario here, but I can tell you it doesn't matter what protocol you follow, as long as it's robust, thorough at the moment, thorough, and you can defend, that's fine. But slowly, I'm sure that NGS and what they cover, agencies like that, there are certification bodies. They will be coming and take this once that becomes a business kind of. And still it is. I think there are organizations, but I'm not aware of now. Does that answer your question kind of now?
No.
Or still not? So you are after an organization who can certify. Maybe that doesn't
How
exist.
do we evaluate third-party rating agencies, and if we are in the process of recruiting them for attesting our reports, how do we assess them?
So I can tell you another one. if you follow life cycle assessment or reporting using international standard, one of the requirements is that it's to be peer review. You understand peer review process? So similar plan, expert will review your process, but in confidence obviously they will be part of the system, and then they can certify. LC can be certified. So that agency, some consulting companies they do that one. Many consulting companies around in Australia. I'm not sure about India. In India, is there anyone know that any organizations also exist in as a business that certify kind of environmental performance? Anyone aware of? Maybe not. Maybe that people have to develop. Maybe no organization.
CPCB.
Okay.
CPCB they hire a team of professors from IITs every year. They go for a review, take a sample of water and other parameters, and on the basis of that, either the MSMEs may shut, because my professor was also in that team, so I know him.
So maybe another option is that you must have steel industry associations. You need to develop something, and the government will follow this protocol and this is standard, and accordingly that's easy to negotiate your own system. That's a possibility. Yeah. But I don't know here, but I know in Australia our government system, we have a lot of organizations who does this kind of review process.
Outfit not yet.
I don't know whether are you puzzled still and doesn't satisfy you or
CPCB
Yeah.
satisfied.
It does this and it is a government organization.
yeah?
CPCB does this.
Does that, huh?
Yes.
So maybe you can
The
talk
parameters
and
are set for them.
give some information to our city colleagues, okay? If you know. Alright,
Next
so
month only.
so anyway, so that's interestingly I think we are I picked so that time Bangladesh was very low, 43 and now going to 100 maybe. New Zealand is a country, interesting country. It's almost nothing there. No, I think that one is New Zealand, isn't it? That one, or no, not that one. So again, New Zealand is only 4 million people, 5 million people. So some people it is a gross and some people say per capita. If you go by per capita, then Australia, US will be very, very high because of less people and you are producing the whatever amount by divided by that. Whereas India will still be very low. Many countries will be very low. There is so much population. Some people express that in terms of GDP, so that how efficient that is. CO2 kilogram CO2 per dollar per income, per so productivity. That's also important because it's not just only story. It's a kind of misleading because some countries, not many people, and use a lot of energy, a lot of CO2. That's not fair to a country like say India, China, where a lot of people, and you may produce a lot of CO2, but per capita, what is that? That's not much. On the other hand, maybe they are producing a lot of income. That's the kind of thing you need to.
Per capita income because
So this is the per capita education.
This is total. Total. Not per capita,
Billion.
not per
Billion.
this is a crude number.
Okay.
Billion.
Million.
Alright. So that one is the previous one, which 2007, and that is updated maybe few years back. Still I haven't updated this year, but I saw this year India looks like 3 million tons. That's what it is. Okay? So that's the main message. So but one thing is that I told you that this mass that was in May 2025, 400. That's our measurement. So that's Tasmania, that's Australia. I come from Melbourne, so there is 400 kilometer distance in the sea, and that place is called Cape Green Station. There is a measurement station, CSR measurement from 1970, I think something like that. And that is the cleanest source of air, one of the cleanest places in the water in the world. And that measures all greenhouse gas emission and then carbon dioxide. You can go out, and then nitrous oxide, waste, etc. So you can see that this is measured. So there was 300. Yesterday we discussed with you, isn't it? Yeah? So that's going up for sure. So that's you can have a look at that. So it's sometimes called industrial ecology concept. Impact. It's called master equation. Somebody will familiar with probably. Yeah. So population is increasing, GDP is increasing. So countries are becoming wealthier, right? I mean that's many countries. So if you impact, environmental impact is population which is growing, affluence which is wealth growing. Although I go some places of West Bengal is still 1920s Bengal. I think Professor Shukla was talking about when you come to Durgapur, it's a nice clean city because not a lot of development, maybe not a lot of, but some areas like Hyderabad, it's a very well developed city and but less greenery, etc. But we need to develop. People need economic development, and then if you have these two things developing, if you multiply, impact will increase. So only thing we manipulate is the technique to reduce that or keep that static. So that's the equation says. And yeah, population affluence is globally increasing, so only option is to bring technology. And philosophically, actually, it's India also proposes a lot of people come back to India for philosophical direction, and that is having material possession over comfort. But on the other hand, we need to survive as a human being and coexist with other nations. So that's like the ecology, industrial ecology principle. It's a kind of same concept. Actually, natural system is pretty good. Actually, one of the doctors explained to me how heart works and heart system. It's very complex. That's beyond me. We are dealing with engineering system. And still, we know that some of the processes are very complex, isn't it? Yeah? So, but as much as you can make industry sustainable and control, at least you can some of the activities. So that's what we discussed about that. There are different tools. One is auditing for energy. We used to do that often. It's not a big deal. Then life cycle costing, environmental life cycle. So that's my expenses. And that's most of the time I will talking about that, only that part. Social LCA, that human rights, labor rights, child labor, this kind of thing. Indigenous people's rights, how many women in the board, things like that. So that's social side. We call organizational LCA, like say LCA for NIT, LCA for say one particular plant or as an organization. So scope 1, 2, 3 mission, we call it OLCA. And then environmental impact assessment, traditional way of doing things, seen that one. Environmental management system, I talked about ISO 14040. I think some of you are familiar with that standard, right? Environmental management system. Many organizations claim that they have that one. ISO 9000 with the
It's
quality control.
9,000, 45,000, 31,000, 14,000.
That's also greenhouse gas and other impact. Material flow analysis, some countries do that one. International standard, obviously. So these are the things you need to. There are many tools you need to pick the right one. And then common terms is say boundary, functional limit, life cycle meter. I think some of the things I've already spoken about. Categorization, environmental impact, they call it midpoint, endpoint, impact method, eco indicator, basically there are various ones, rating, and tools is there as software. So actually these lectures will be given to you. I will make sure that Abbas gives to you and you can look at more.
Which of the LCA tool is available without any license of
Open LCA, I will speak about that. Open
So
LCA.
that is open source.
Open source. It's very good.
But can it work for our cases actually?
GIA?
Yeah, you encourage your students to look at that. Open LCA plus eco-invent data that you might need to buy, or you generate your own data and then feed it, load it up in Open LCA. It becomes very good.
So it is a GUI?
That means that by using Open LCA,
Yeah.
we can collaborate with some industry and
You can-
help
you can-
it to generate some data.
Yes, easy. Yeah, that's I'm now moving more on the Open LCA because it doesn't cost
No,
much.
because I'm looking that there might be some very bright students who would like to do some project, maybe some BTech project for 6 months or for MTech project for 1 year actually, and then there exists a huge opportunity.
Yeah.
In all the industries, not particularly steel industries, but
Power plant, yeah, that's
everywhere.
right. I encourage students also to explore the research students. It's a good skill. Whatever technology you are developing, develop something because you do it all around in jobs. You sell your PhD. You can say that I've done some LCA for my process. And Open LCA is a good tool. And I often talk about boundary. So cradle to grade, all the start to finish. Cradle to gate, where steel is made, production, use, and end of life. And life cycle, production of raw material, manufacturing, production. We can have a gate to gate. So what is entrance, like say DSP gate, and what is out. You don't need to worry about upstream that one. At least you can state that I'm doing gate to gate LCA. And then so that's way. So boundary concept should be absolutely clear, right? And often people say if this is 100 kg per CO2 per product, and somebody said gate to cradle to gate is 100 kg, it doesn't match. And often the result do not match because of the boundary is not clearly specified. So you need to have that absolutely clear when you review the process. When you talk about third-party review, that's important because those things you need to know. We have done a lot of review like this. And stages they call it goal, scope, inventory, which is data basically, impact assessment and interpret. So why you are doing this LCA? Is that for comparing with another industry, or is that you understand your own process? You want to marketing advantage of your product, my product is green. Is that the purpose? Generally, good purpose, I would say, to understand if you develop a concept, it will give good insights about your own process. And often, you end up in costing, sort of reducing the cost because you are going through the auditing exercise. Right? Boundary demarcation, data collection, impact category selection, assessment, and obviously objectives to upgrade and improve. and you want to know the hotspot and how you attack to reduce the CO2 footprint of your process. And sorry, stages, again the same thing is a little bit more detailed. One of the area is called environmental product declaration. So that's in Europe very common. You know, when you buy a fridge, star rating, right? Nowadays 3-star. So they're saying that you need to have some sort of recipe, the CO2 footprint, ECWW footprint, something like that. When you go to buy cereal, that what's the fat content, sugar content, etc. So in Europe, it's still not mandatory. It's called environmental product declaration (EPD). So that's slowly coming. Still not mandatory, but slowly. I know that some of the product you want to send in Europe, they might ask that where is your EPD one. So export, those countries export, they're very serious, like Australia, export a lot of goods. We are exporting countries, so we need to be very aware of things our customers are asking for. So and what I will review quality check. So these are the indicators, midpoint indicators: global warming, photochemical oxidation, eutrophication, carcinogen. And these are the units. So for the global warming, kilograms CO2, kilogram ethylene, kilogram phosphate, 1 benzene, etc. But the thing is that good thing is that each has got a unit, each has got a value, and that's the strength of the scale. A lot of people do not want to understand or do not want to say, oh, these, that. There are, but here you have what you need, you have got a number. That's the strength of it. And but ultimately, if you look at that, this affects either human health or ecosystem or resource. And then we categorize that, and then adjust the unit changes. It's called disability adjusted life years, so tally unit. For example, in India, average lifespan of human, I don't know, 70 years now or 77?
71.
72. So 70 is a plus minus. Say I have got 10 coal-fired power stations. So if the impact of that may be 69. So that 1 year is called disability adjusted because of that activity. So they can quantify how many minutes you lose because of some activity, and they can calculate for that. Then how many land is disappeared? It's called partially disappeared fraction because per land per year or hectare per year. So the solar, very good, no CO2, but what land? What about resource depletion? You will not steal a lot of solar silicon production is not easy. You know that. So this is kind of holistic, everything included. This is good thing. And if you diametrically that the raw material, all these activities, impact, and that is human health, resource, and ecosystem damage. So basically, these are the, you have a, you need to evaluate that. So these are software, Pro, Gabi, Recorded LCA for experts, OpenLCA, that's what I'm saying. They are very poor. It's like Wikipedia, it's some of the things you don't rely on. So, but they are limited in kind of tech, in kind of strength, and but they are improving. There are some country specific. I think Japanese has got line 2. I think one of the professors who did that. I have a good connection. And there are other country specific software. So we have our own database, our own software. Software is not the solution. You have to understand the data. You have to understand the process and analyze it and understand the results. So that's Pro. That's I think I'll tell Amash to give you. So this sort of part of this sort of course, we don't have enough time. We have to move into theoretical side. I generally run a course with actual software. Is that actual software running itself. So maybe Amash to make sure that everyone gets the copy of the software. Okay. So that Pro, they are very well developed now. It's a big company now. They make a lot of money. So it's a SaaS company. So that, I use that for a long time. Then this one is OpenLCA. You can, Professor Shukla, this one is OpenLCA. So there are a lot of information on the web.
One thing I don't know, that accessibility of the software, apart from doing the evaluation for the actual LCA parameter, I think it's important to have the capability of doing some optimizations also based upon the number of constraints on the part of the raw material and other surrounding peripheral parameters. And apart from that, it is also important that LCA software should be able to do the sensitivity analysis also based upon some expected changes. For example, if we cut down this by 1%, then how much impact it is going to realize at the end or whatever. So based upon that, the most vital operating parameters in the overall supply chain could be identified actually. So is there any software which is having that capability?
So generally software, once you have the model, you can easily change a lot of analysis you can do. If you can do hand calculation, that becomes a bit, bottleneck. So that's the software benefits if you want to do lots of level calculation like that. Another thing, this software, either OpenLCA or Spera, Step now, PolitLCA for experts, Gabi software, I have used all of them mostly. So, but there are pros and cons and strengths and weaknesses, but essentially software is software. Good, but this is independent one LCA software. Now, what people are thinking, actually that was happening before too, there is software called HSC Chemistry, Autotech, Autotech company, they developed that one. So Autotech is a thermodynamic software like FACSAs and others, and slowly that HSC Chemistry has been very good in processing capability, energy balance. Now, long time ago, actually as part of that collaboration with Autotech also, and Autotech gave me HSC license, and HSC plus Gabi. They had, so HSC have got all the material balances and energy balances. You feed into the LCA software and they come with a nice way of doing it because two software was speaks differently. You need to have it before. A lot of people are talking now Python based or other simulation based software including LCA. The other one is the Aspen simulation software. Aspen, some probably chemical engineers use it. They're very good for gas
design.
Sorry?
Plant design design.
Yeah, Aspen Dynamic Analyzer or Aspen and ISIS.
Aspen ISIS is.
So you simulate that, and you nowadays generally they report you CO2 footprint. So they have got a capability of that, but not indirect. LCA does indirect, and the other software I know SysCAD. Some of may have used it. NetSim. I was a user of NetSim for a long time. SysCAD has got that capability to calculate CO2. So now using SysCAD and connecting with the LCA software. So approaching software plus I have used so many software over my career, and yeah, I was a custodian of at some stage, quite significant amount of money that we used to pay for software. So
these will be requiring a GPU, I think.
sorry?
These softwares must be requiring GPU or something else. GPU.
Means what does it mean?
Means I think the other open software,
OpenLCA.
I think it will be running on node or supercomputer like something else.
No, I don't think so. It's a standard computer is enough. Yeah, it's a bit thick computer. That is heavy. Computation is always summation, addition. So it's not big.
Can be run on a normal PC, right?
No, PC. Fine. So only thing is that Gabi database, each software has a database. Database is the heart of the software. Software works if the database is rich. Some people say that the Gabi database is good in terms of metadata, but I think it's not a problem. But as I said, the data libraries are important. So I come to specific data. I think I've seen some India data also recently in some of the softwares, but some of the old data, some of the new data, people changes, and unit systems, unit data or system data, you will see these are kind of terms and etc. But when you go into deep end, there are a lot of things you can learn. And like the Australian database, we call it L06 Australian Bicycle Database Initiative. So you see that energy, coal, hydro, everything there. Manufacturing, you can see that on plastics, wood, everything else, aluminium. The plastic itself is a big database. Building construction, because all buildings use that kind of database. Chemicals are transport. So, developing that database is a key expensive part. And developing countries have resources. We have a lot of resources. We're working 20 years on database development. So that's also Eco-Inmet is the major database. There are World Steel Association, very Copper Association. There are European various. Now it's Spera has got that company has got many inventory data, and then data is becoming. Previously, a lot of junk data is there too, so they are becoming obsolete. New data is coming in. So it's a kind of it's a dynamic system. It's not necessarily you just have that software 10 years ago. It doesn't work. So Brazilian national database, Malaysian database, a lot of countries also work with us, and we have sort of collaboration. So now so all these things ultimately we want to calculate the CO2 emission of the power, right? So that's if you do that one, so kilogram CO2 per kilowatt hour. So that's I don't know why. Is that do you think state to state will vary?
Yeah.
Vary. And what's the reason?
On the basis of population, on the basis of how modern the city is.
And coal quality.
Coal quality, whether it is a eastern zone or a western zone or north zone.
So it looks like this is the lowest. So this is the lowest.
generation, no?
Emission.
Uttar Pradesh
Emission.
Why is Bihar is high? Any idea?
Because of industry tech.
In UP we have
No, this is the electricity produced from the power plants.
power plant.
Bihar has very low thermal capacity. The
No,
thermal capacity is very less in Bihar.
that's why we
No, not because of that, but it is high because of some other reason.
other reasons.
Damn it.
I wish somebody decipher this and get some bottom of that why that.
Uttar Pradesh has nuclear power plant.
This is all coal-fired power plant.
No,
Oh no,
no, Uttar Pradesh
This
has
is every
Every
state
activity.
different mix, right? That's why. Yeah, maybe. So do you think which one is the lowest? Punjab has got some renewables, maybe? Do you think?
Gujarat has high renewables, so
Yeah,
wind
yeah.
energy.
That's why it is
Wind
low.
energy very high.
So it's the electricity of that grid, state grid, basically.
Same as the
Maybe
Rajasthan.
sir, some agricultural activities.
Yeah, maybe. Sorry,
Some
agriculture?
agricultural activities contributing to this. Like
No, it's
just
just
electricity.
electricity of the grid of that state,
Okay.
but maybe it's old. I don't know how old that data. Could be 2 years old, 3 years
The
old.
main carrier may be the renewable energy sources.
So, sir,
Because here the Rajasthan and Gujarat are on the lower side.
Yeah.
And both are having
renewable.
high loads.
I believe next, say, in the 2-3 years down the track, it will be drastically different, isn't it?
By 2030, 32.
क्योंकि बहुत चीजें आ गई हैं.
Karnataka has a large wind
Then
generation.
Karnataka is around.
That is not.
the proportionate mix of renewable and thermal is higher in India. That's why it is.
It's a composition.
Yes, yes. That's why it is of higher side.
Renewable has a composition. So basically, whole lecture, this is the main thing I found, but actually I did that analysis last night, but essentially, I don't know, because Indian data I'm not too much aware of, but you probably can see. But another thing I would like to point out, this data is there, may not be updated, so you need to update and the company need to, because this is feeding into electric, in the furnace or any other process, we need to understand that, how the things are changing. Okay? Now this is CO2 only, LCA so far, everything decarbonization, we call it CO2, footprint. What about other indicators? And if you do that properly, or that's a bit difficult to understand, but global warming, this is CO2, okay? All these numbers, just I plotted that one. But there are what is called spectroscopic ozone depletion, ionizing radiation, ozone, what they call other indicators, various matter, particulate matter, terrestrial acidification, freshwater acidification. Each has got in it. I saw that in it. You know that indicator, in it, midpoint, this one, and each state we look at, there are some differences. So when people say, oh, that's carbon footprint, that's the only thing, but what about others? We need to look at that and also, and that's only for electricity. What about steel? What about others? So there is a lot to do, right? Just this is what I want to do. So we discuss common terms, software, databases, software, other LCI, maybe Indian LCI. We have discussed even 10 years ago. Nothing happened, but some countries are picking up very fast. Some countries are, and there are we can use that. So I think this is I wanted to speak about, and I'm happy to have any question or comment before finishing for lunch. Any question? Is that so far what I was preparing? Is it clear or some?
No.
I made up. Clear? Or clear?
Now, those are softwares that we discussed. So which one is relevant for the steel industry? Is there something like that?
Doesn't matter really. For me, I don't advocate for any software because all are same plus minus. I would recommend Schema Pro because Schema Pro sometimes has got, but again, I think academic people should go for because that will develop faster. In industry, if you can spend some money, you can look at Schema Pro. I think they used to sell 2 lakhs per year, something like that in India. If you can afford that, so Schema Pro can have base mark, but you need to have practitioners. Software can help you 20-30%. Ultimately, practitioners, expertise, etc. important. Okay, makes sense?
Yeah.
Does it answer your question? Right. Any other question, comment? Yes. So yeah, social health is very good question. There is a social hotspot database. Actually, I did some social health here. Maybe I will show you one of the lecture if I have still that one. It's a chart made into various countries. What is the social footprint? And depending on some countries have got high social footprint, some countries have low. So you have to make sure that and that's how does that work? For example, a shirt needs cotton, needs the buttons, need whatever the plastic, etc., etc. they take from different country, and each country has got a profile, and it's more kind of money. So this shot costs $20. I don't know, 20, yeah, something like that, $20. So you give $20, $1 cotton comes from India, something plastic comes from China, etc., etc., and it will give a index, social profile. And that's human rights and everything else. Some country high, some country low. So generally, Western country will have low means good, high means bad. So low, some Western countries low because they are human rights good, they are labor rights good, etc., etc. Within developing countries, there is a variation. So some countries have high, some countries low. So you can do that one. So, but that's you need to buy special software, special database within the scheme of work and belief, and you need to have a skill set because I'm not a social scientist. It's more social scientists should interpret. That's the concept. 2 months.
There's also
But you need to have expertise.
yes.
Make sense? Any other question? Very good question and points. Maybe any announcement? And please come back when Professor Dr. Robert says.
Thank you. Then we will go for lunch. Just annex